Hello again, world history. Welcome to U12-L3 Basics of Enlightenment. Okay, so we're going to go through a bunch of people today. So I'll probably talk a little fast, but again, if you have any questions, do let me know. Learning targets identify the major intellectual and scientific developments of the 17th and 18th century Europe, describe the regional and global influences on the European scientific revolution and Enlightenment. We'll talk about Enlightenment today, and assess their impact on global society. Your job, you're going to answer the questions that are in blue text directly on the Ed puzzle. Anything that's in red text is going to be a vocab word on your study guide, so make sure you're following along with that as well. All right, Enlightenment. What does it even mean? So the Enlightenment period was between the late 1600s to the early 1800s, and that's when scholars were rethinking the old beliefs and brought new insight into religion, economics, education, and government, which shouldn't come too much of a surprise to you since the United States was founded during this time period, and the intellectual movement that stressed reason and thought. It also stressed the power of individuals to solve problems. So instead of blindly believing in the churches and like the rulers, like the kings and like the ruling class, it was for the people to think for themselves. And there were two really big thinkers of Enlightenment. The first one being Thomas Hobbes, and the second one being John Locke. So, Thomas Hobbes, he fought in the English Civil War, which happened between 1642 and 1651. Honestly, I don't even know why they went to civil war, but he fought in it. And during it, he concluded that humans were naturally wicked and selfish. So, in order to combat this, humans gave up their rights to a strong ruler. So then that strong ruler would then, in return, give people law and order. And he believed the best government was an absolute monarchy. That means that a king or queen rules all aspects of government and has unlimited power. So he has a very kind of dark and gloomy outcome of society after he fought in the Civil War. Then we have John Locke. So he believed people could learn from experience and improve themselves, that humans had the natural ability to self govern and create welfare in society. He also believed all people were born free and equal. He also believed that all people have rights to life, liberty, and property, and the purpose of the government was to protect those three rights. He also criticized Hobbes' depressing views of humanity. So we have kind of like two very different outcomes on humanity. We have Hobbes, which is very dark and gloomy, and then we have John Locke, who has a little bit more of a lighthearted approach to humanity. Life, liberty, and property. Where have I heard these words before, or at least something similar? Yeah, have some flashbacks to US history. So, in the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America, it says liberty or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, the Declaration of Independence was influenced by John Locke's teachings. All right, and then we have philosophies. So philosophies is the French word for philosophers. And a philosopher is a person who studies ethics and logic. And a bunch of philosophies met in Paris in the mid 1700s to kind of hash out ideas about the Enlightenment era. But at that meeting, they all agreed that people could apply reason to all aspects of life, just like how scientists follow theories and math formulas. And together, all of these men concluded with 5 concepts of reasoning that everyone should follow. So let's go through those 5 concepts of reasoning. The first is reason. And that means that truth could be discovered through reason or logic. Number 2 is nature. So, what was natural was also good and reasonable. For example, people would be punished for wrongdoings by nature, not society. Kind of like karma, where there's natural consequences happen to someone without human influence. Then we have happiness. That's where people should find joy on earth and not just focus on joy in the afterlife, which was a really heavy topic that the Catholic Church always kind of like put on the oppressed classes. Like, oh, if you do really good and you like are really good Christians, and even though you're suffering in this life, you'll find happiness in the next life. And these philosophies kind of flipped the script on that, and they said people should find joy on earth right now. Number 4 is progress. That's where society and mankind can improve itself. And then liberty. That is the freedom to elect members of a government, freedom of speech in government, freedom from royal interference with the law, freedom from cruel and unusual punishment and excessive bail, and many, many more. All right, so now let's talk about some Enlightenment era philosophers. So Voltaire, that was actually his pen name. His real name is oh god, I don't know French. It's Francois Marie Aru. Oh yeah. Anyway, that guy right there. He was a French philosopher, and he published more than 70 books and essays. And he fought for rights of religious belief and the freedom of speech. The Catholic Church really, really hated him, so much so that he was sent to prison twice and he was exiled to England. His famous quote is, "I do not agree with the word you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." We also have Baron de Montesquieu. He was a French writer, and he wrote the book on the spirit of laws, and he said that there must be a separation of powers in the government. That way, no one person has too much power. So he created the system of check and balances, which influenced the founding of the US government, and we still have that today. Then we have Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was also a French philosopher. And during a time when philosophers believed people could improve life through reason, science, and art, Rousseau disagreed. He believed that only a direct democracy government could give people the ultimate freedom under government. What a direct democracy is when citizens vote directly on reforms and laws. So here in the United States, we have a representative democracy where we vote for politicians, and then those politicians make like the laws and reforms and stuff like that. In a direct democracy, everyone would vote on laws and reforms directly. And Rousseau believed beliefs would inspire the French Revolution, which happened between 1789 and 1799, which you'll learn more about the French Revolution with a John Green video. We also have Mary Wollstonecraft. So she wrote an essay called A Vindication of the Rights of Woman in 1792. And it was in response to an essay that Rousseau wrote saying that women shouldn't be educated like men. Of course, this really upset Mary Wollstonecraft, and she said that women's education should be as equal as any man's and encouraged women to go into medical and political fields. And a cool fun fact is that her daughter wrote Frankenstein. If you're like, wow, that last name sounds like really familiar, yeah, that's why. We also have Alexander Crummell. So he was from 1819 to 1898, and he was a Black American philosopher. He attended an interracial school as a youth, and he wanted to be an Episcopal minister, but he was denied due to his race. So instead, he went to England and studied at Queen's College. So after Queen's College, he became a missionary, a pastor, and a professor in Liberia. After 20 years, he would come back to the United States. While he was in the United States, he advocated for more Black leaders in the Christian churches. He also taught at Howard University, and he founded the American Negro Academy, which is an intellect society for Black people. All right, now let's talk more about the dark side of enlightenment. So, most of you have probably taken biology, especially last year. Usually that's like a 10th grade thing. And you probably talked about Charles Darwin. Do you remember who Charles Darwin was? And if so, what do you remember about him? So, Charles Darwin famously explored many biomes with plants and animals, such as the Galapagos Islands. And this voyage was between 1831 and 1835. So, here's a map of his voyage, by the way, so you can see he went pretty much everywhere except for North America, but he hit every other continent. He noted in his book the concept of survival of the fittest. So, survival of the fittest refers to organisms who are best adjusted to their environment, are the most successful in surviving and reproducing. But this took a very dark turn because some power hungry Europeans chose to interpret survival of the fittest in a very, very different way. So this came to be something called social Darwinism. And that is the false idea that certain people become powerful in society because they are simply born better. Okay, I'm going to read that one more time. Social Darwinism, the false idea that certain people become powerful in society because they are born better. Okay, this idea really came from this dude right here. His name was Herbert Spencer. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about social Darwinism. Again, it's the false idea that certain people become powerful in society because they're born better. So, for example, if someone said, "My daddy is richer than yours," well, that just must mean I'm better than you. If an 1800s European said, "You people are still using outdated tools and have a non European style of government," well, I use iron and I have guns. So I am better than you. And I'm going to conquer, colonize, enslave, and massacre you. So this really, really led to what slavery in like the 17th and 1800s was all about. This would also lead to pseudoscience that analyzed social Darwinism regarding race and religion. So, what is pseudoscience? Pseudoscience is a statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are not proven with the scientific method. Okay? I'm going to say that one more time. Pseudoscience, statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are not proven with the scientific method. Okay? So, pseudosciences, this would lead to a false sense of need to conquer non white, non European nations, which then would lead to something called imperialism. Next unit, we are talking all about imperialism. Imperialism would then lead to colonization. Colonization leads to racism. Racism leads to slavery and or discrimination, which leads to massacres and or genocides. So once colonizers would leave that area that they colonized, there would then be little to no resources and or dysfunctioning governments. So pretty much colonizers were there to get the natural resources and then they were out. All right, so that was a lot to talk about. Again, we will talk about imperialism more next unit. So let's wrap this up. Today we talked about Enlightenment, Thomas Hobbes, absolute monarchy, John Locke, philosophes, Voltaire, Baron de Montesquieu, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Mary Wollstonecraft, Alexander Cromwell, Charles Darwin, survival of the fittest, and social Darwinism. Next up, you're going to do U12-L4 French Revolution Crash Course, and then U12-L5 European Industrial Revolution Crash Course. Again, John Green, great at describing things, very witty and funny. He does talk kind of fast. And then U12-L6 Haitian Revolution Part 1, and then U12-L7 Haitian Revolution Part 2. That is about the Haitian Revolution down in Haiti, which is in the Caribbean. We don't have time for the revolution video choice. this unit for this year. But there will be an optional Unit 12 practice Kahoot. That's a great study tool for the Unit 12 test, which will come next week. If you have any questions or comments or simply want to learn more, please let us know. We are here to help you. Thanks for watching. Bye.